Donald Trump, what voters believed is that the economy was his best issue.
Right.
That this is what he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And instead, he's cost people money. You can't buy a house right now. You wouldn't put your house on the market. Everything is unstable. Everything is uncertain. And we're probably about a month away from empty shelves.
So joining us now in our pop-up studio here in Washington, D.C., big welcome to Chuck Todd, who's a former presenter of NBC's Meet the Press and the host of the podcast, The Chuck Toddcast. Hello to you, Chuck.
How you doing?
Thanks for joining us.
Glad you guys came out here for this.
It's a huge pleasure to be here. I hope you appreciate the plug for your podcast.
I do appreciate it. We like and subscribe. We're all about this. You guys get a tremendous, you have a tremendous YouTube audience.
Well, that's incredibly kind of you. You can say that in your podcast. Now, let me ask you this. Chuck, journalist to journalist, or journalist to journalist to journalist, because Alastair is still with us. Look, I get that you got, like all Americans, you got skin in this game. You know, in some ways we've all got skin in this game. It's our world. We all live in it. But we are reporters, and we look at the story, and we try to be dispassionate, you know, when we can, to the extent that we can. This is what a story. What a story, Chuck.
Look, it is. And I think it's interesting. I think both voters and, frankly, many of us in the press corps assumed Trump 2.0 would be familiar if you covered Trump 1.0. And I think the biggest mistake we've all made is treating it that way. This is a brand new administration. Right. This is one we never saw before. The first one, Trump was in charge, but he was surrounded by people who were restrainers.
Yes.
Mike Pence, he was in charge of the transition. Mike Pence made sure there were no RFK Jr. showing up in the health secretary. Mike Pence made sure there were no Tulsi Gabbard showing up at the at Intel. Reince Priebus was the first chief of staff. He had a lot of sort of Washington connections. Susie Wiles does not at all. So this is a very, I think this reminds me of an administration of a brand new president who look like they don't quite know what to do or how to do it. This is the fewest pieces of actual legislation. Yes. I mean, he came into office with Congress in his party's hands. Yes. He's yet to sign any major legislation from them. Instead, he's doing executive orders, most of which will either be overturned by the courts or really do nothing, right? Like they're just sort of, I always say they're press releases with a signature. You know, they're sort of formal press releases. And so it has been, you know, I heard you guys discussing, there's been a lot of motion, but it's like being on a boat that's rocking. You're there's a ton of motion, but you're not going anywhere. Yeah. And we just really, if anything, we've retracted in what he's done with the economy. I think this is the equivalent of the Afghanistan moment for Joe Biden. And the reason I believe the Afghanistan moment was so destructive to his presidency, even though it was early on, was voters thought the one thing he had core competence in was foreign affairs. So they never expected his biggest blunder to be on that topic. And when that happened, I think it's why he never recovered. His job approval rating never gets back over 45 because you're like, whoa, that was your best issue and you messed that up? It means everything else is probably a mess. Yeah. For Donald Trump, what voters believed is that the economy was his best issue. Right. That this is what he knew what he was doing. Yeah. And instead, he's cost people money. You can't buy a house right now. You wouldn't put your house on the market. Everything is unstable. Everything is uncertain. And we're probably about a month away from empty shelves. And that's going to be another major moment for the public.
So your money, Chuck, is on a big walk back when it comes to this tariff.
Well, he already has done it, which means the policy is already a failure because the whole point of it is to do what? Bring companies to build factories here. That's not going to happen. Yeah. These walkbacks, he has handed leverage to every other country because every country now knows what? He's desperate for deals. He has to make a deal. Well, who's got Mr. Art of the deal? Who's got the leverage? He's handed all this leverage. The irony is that when this administration started, he was right. The United States, the world's biggest customer, had a bunch of leverage. He threw it away. Yeah. He threw it away by going too big, and now countries are and then he pulls back, so you know he's willing to pull back. So, you know, it's like playing somebody in poker who says, yeah, I'm going to show you all my hands and I'm going to bluff. I'm going to show you all my cards and I'm bluffing. And you're like, I've always joked, I'd love to play poker with Donald Trump because I don't think he's very good at it.
Right. Okay. Listen, look, Chuck, what do I know? Look, I just came through passport control yesterday, but it is not possible.
You're lucky to make it through.
Well, I was kind of relieved.
Right. Yeah. I only half joke.
Is it not possible that the president could do a good deal of walking back, and end up in a different place all the same. 10% tariffs. There's no reason to think they're all going to disappear.
Right.
And that is quite a big tax on importers. That's going to make a difference economically. It is going to bring in revenue. You don't have to buy the idea this is going to bring in the kind of money you need to abolish income tax.
Right.
And it is a tax.
Although
it's not a charge on foreign governments.
I think I think this is something people are missing. I do think if you look at his math, it doesn't add up to give no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security.
Yeah.
But if he decided to say, hey, let's carve out everybody 200,000 and under, which would cover Social Security recipients, which would cover people who make their income on tips, and try to replace it, I could see him attempting this.
Yeah.
And it might be a way to sell tariffs to a skeptical Republican Party because Alistair's right. The congressional Republicans hate this policy.
Yeah.
Okay, they do not like it at all.
With a certain amount of smart politics, you think some of this can be finessed.
Well, I do, except I do think it's in some ways this is where there's, I think, political incompetence around him. They ordered this the wrong way. Tariffs were always going to be a disruptive force. Give people a tax cut, then disrupt their lives with this. He did it in the reverse, and the irony is this tax cut people aren't going to feel. Because, I mean, look, I've read enough studies. Even if he reversed all course today, there'd still be supply chain issues that would cause problems all the way to Christmas.
You sound as if the midterms, 18 months off, you sound as if it's almost in the bag.
Well, it depends on your definition
for the Democrats.
Of in the bag. The House, yes. The margins are too narrow. Here's how you'll know. If the Senate ever gets in play for the Democrats, because it really isn't. The map is a tough map, and I won't bog down your listeners and viewers here. Our senators go up every, a third of them every 2 years. The third that are up, it's a better Republican map than Democratic map. However, this gets bad enough. He's suddenly handing Democrats opportunities in places like North Carolina, Texas, Iowa, Kansas. I mean, the farm states in particular, they've had a double hit because the first one was the cutting of AID. USAID, as much as it was a soft power thing, was a huge financial asset to our farmers because that's where they sold their excess food. They cut that, and now the reciprocal tariffs are most harmful in our country to our farmers.
Now, this chain of reasoning was exactly why I said a moment ago, this could conceivably be a crossroads, not just a normal symbolic 100 days. It could be a crossroads, honestly.
Yeah, I think the one advantage he's got is that he can reverse some of this stuff. I mean, you talk about supply chain issues until Christmas. That's till Christmas. He's then got another 11 months to the midterms. Unlike Joe Biden, where Afghanistan happened and you can't improve that situation. That happened and it's a disaster and you can't walk that back. I think it's key who Donald Trump listens to. There are people in the administration who want him to go hard on tariffs, who want him to throttle China, to throttle some of his trading partners, the EU. There are others who are horrified and terrified by what the markets are showing, the value of the dollar and so on and so forth. I think you're right. It is a crossroads. He's got a decision to make. He's got a series of decisions to make. What does he want to do? Is he, he's ruling by diktat at the moment. He's not passing legislation. Is that what he wants to do for the next 4 years? I don't think he's serious about a third one in 2028. I think that's for the birds. But how does he get to 2028? What does he want his legacy to be? And I think he's got a choice to make at around this point.
But before we part, I just want to get both of your thoughts on the subject of Ukraine. That we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about dollars and cents, about pounds and pence. In Ukraine, we're talking about lives here. And again, we seem to be maybe at a crossroad point here. Did that sit down, that strange looking sit down in the St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican the other day, did that actually mean very much? I don't know. Do you? And you don't know. Do you have a sense there? What do you think?
The fact that he publicly scolded Putin, and the fact we don't see that very often.
He's done that before.
This was the most we've seen. It's interesting. You got to give Macron and Starmer credit, right? They both worked this hard at the Pope's funeral, and it was Macron that set up those chairs, and made that face-to-face happen. But the fact is, this is more proof that whoever's got Donald Trump's ear last sometimes can get have the most impact. And Zelensky and Macron had Trump's ears last, and suddenly he's now blaming Putin for not wanting to come to the table.
Who'll have his ear next? Look, last one. As a figure from the U.S. media, I've got to ask you. I mean, you hear all the time this complaint from the Republican side of the aisle in public opinion as well as in politics, how the U.S. media is just so biased against their side that they've sacrificed a lot of credibility and trust. Is there anything to be said for that? Does the let's call it the mainstream media?
What is
kind of part
I
of
always
it,
tell people.
But is that, do they have something to answer for here?
I think the issue is we're just super fragmented. And I do think that a lot of traditional media outlets hired way too many professional politicians to look like anchors. Like, I think that was, having a former member of Congress be one of the lead anchors for a morning show for one of the cable news channels is not a good look. We've seen how Fox is really sort of part of the, I actually think you have.
But they've all done it, Chuck.
Correct. And I think what it has done is it has broken trust with everybody, right? So the right says, well, look at those guys. And then the left says, well, look at those guys. But I'll tell you the real problem in our country with our information ecosystem is we gutted local news. And the gutting of local news, and there's a variety of reasons that happened, that is what made people distrust media. Because national media, we're far away.
Yeah.
Local media is right there. If you don't know your local journalist, you know somebody who maybe goes to school with the kid of the journalist or something like that. The gutting of local news in this country is why I think there's been such a partisan move in the national media. And I think if we I think we got a lot of work to do, but national media can't fix it on its own.
Yeah,
we got to replenish local.
We've seen something of that hollowing out of local news in our country too, in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, classified advertising was a elegant way to fund local news until it wasn't.
All right, Chuck Todd, such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Thank you.
Alistair, great to see you, mate. We'll see you again very soon.
Tomorrow.
Before you know it. When we got a hook into you, Alistair, we do not let you go.
I am fully aware of that.